What if I told you that one of Rome's most elite military units simply vanished from history? Not defeated in a glorious battle, not honored with monuments. They just disappeared, as if the earth itself swallowed them whole. The mystery of Rome's Ninth Legion has haunted historians for nearly 2,000 years. 5,000 battle-hardened soldiers, veterans of countless campaigns, vanished so completely that Rome itself seemed to forget they ever existed. No final battle reports, no funeral honors, no desperate letters home. Just silence. But here's what makes this story truly chilling. The evidence suggests this wasn't an accident. Someone wanted the Ninth Legion erased from history, and they almost succeeded. To understand why the Ninth Legion's disappearance is so disturbing, you need to know what made them special. This wasn't some random garrison posted to a quiet frontier town. The Ninth Legion Hispana was Rome's equivalent of elite special forces. Founded during the dying days of the Roman Republic, they'd fought alongside Julius Caesar himself. Their battle honors read like a greatest hits of Roman conquest: Spain, Gaul, the Germanic frontier, and finally the mist-shrouded highlands of Britain. When Rome needed a message delivered in blood rather than ink, they sent the Ninth. By the early 2nd century, the Ninth was stationed at Iberacum, modern-day York, right at the bleeding edge of Roman civilization. Beyond their walls lay the Caledonian tribes, fierce warriors who had never bowed to Rome's eagles. It was dangerous duty, but the Ninth had faced worse and survived. Then, around 108 to 120 AD, something unprecedented happened. The Ninth Legion simply vanished from Roman records, not gradually, not with explanations or fanfare. They just stopped existing on paper. Now, here's what makes this truly mysterious. Rome was obsessive about record-keeping. Every soldier's name, every battle, every promotion was meticulously documented. When legions were destroyed, Rome mourned publicly. They built monuments, minted commemorative coins, held elaborate funeral rites. The disaster at Teutoburg Forest, where 3 entire legions were massacred, became a national trauma that lasted for generations. But for the Ninth, nothing. No monuments, no mourning, no explanation. It was as if someone had taken an eraser to history itself. For nearly 2 millennia, historians have proposed theory after theory. Maybe the Ninth was transferred to the eastern frontier and destroyed fighting Parthians. Maybe they were wiped out by British rebels and Rome was too embarrassed to admit it. Maybe they were disbanded for cowardice or mutiny, but every theory had problems. If they'd been transferred, why no records of their new posting? If they'd been destroyed, where were the usual recriminations and investigations? If they'd been disbanded in disgrace, why wasn't this used as an example to other legions? The breakthrough came when historians started looking not at what was recorded, but at what was deliberately omitted. In the meticulous bureaucracy of Roman administration, certain patterns emerged that chilled researchers to the bone. Official correspondence from the period contains cryptic references to exceptional losses in northern Britain and restructuring of frontier garrisons. Most disturbing of all, some documents mention units exempted from memorialization. In the context of Roman military culture, this phrase is almost unthinkable. It suggests a deliberate decision to forget. Archaeological evidence from Hadrian's Wall, built shortly after the Ninth's disappearance, tells its own story. The wall's construction records meticulously list every legion involved in the project. Every legion except one. The Ninth's conspicuous absence from what should have been the greatest construction project in British history speaks volumes. To understand why Rome might want to erase the Ninth, we need to examine the political climate of early 2nd century Britain. This wasn't just about military defeat. This was about the empire's greatest fear, losing control of its own forces. The Ninth had been stationed in northern Britain for decades. Unlike legions that rotated between postings, they'd put down roots. Soldiers married local women. Officers adopted British customs. Some even learned Pictish dialects. For Rome, this cultural blending represented a dangerous precedent. The empire's strength came from uniform loyalty, not local adaptation. Legions that became too comfortable with native populations could become unreliable. They might hesitate to crush rebellions involving people they'd come to see as neighbors rather than enemies. Worse still, they might begin to question orders from distant Rome. Evidence suggests the Ninth had indeed become uncomfortably integrated with local communities. Archaeological finds from York show Roman military equipment alongside distinctly British artifacts in domestic contexts. Tombstones from the period reveal Roman soldiers with Celtic wives and hybrid Roman-British names for their children. For an empire already paranoid about frontier stability, the Ninth may have crossed an invisible line from reliable garrison to potential liability. What happened next reads like a political thriller. Rather than risk the scandal of a legion going native, evidence suggests Rome made a calculated decision. The Ninth would be isolated, cut off from reinforcements and supplies, and left to face an increasingly hostile tribal confederation alone. This theory explains the strange pattern of evidence. No glorious last stand because it wasn't meant to be glorious. No monuments because the defeat was engineered. No investigation because the outcome was intended. The Ninth wasn't destroyed by enemies of Rome. They were sacrificed by Rome itself. The cover-up was masterful. Official records were altered or destroyed. Surviving officers from the Ninth were quietly transferred to distant postings. The Legion's number was retired, never to be used again. Within a generation, institutional memory had been deliberately erased. But why go to such extreme lengths? Because the truth was more dangerous than any military defeat. If word spread that Rome had abandoned one of its own legions for political convenience, it could have triggered revolts across the empire. Soldiers everywhere would have questioned their own security. The empire's greatest strength, the absolute loyalty of its military, would have been shattered. The mystery of the Ninth Legion continues to yield new insights as historians apply modern analytical techniques to ancient sources. Computer analysis of Roman bureaucratic documents has revealed subtle patterns of alteration and omission that human eyes missed for centuries. Carbon dating of artifacts from northern Britain has confirmed a sudden Roman withdrawal from several outposts around 120 AD, consistent with a coordinated abandonment. Perhaps most tellingly, recent analysis of Hadrian's personal correspondence reveals a man obsessed with what he called frontier reliability. Multiple letters discuss the danger of units compromised by local sentiment and the need for decisive action to preserve imperial cohesion. The picture that emerges is of an emperor willing to sacrifice 5,000 men to send a message to the rest of his army. Rome comes first, always and without question. The fate of the Ninth Legion stands as one of history's most chilling examples of institutional memory manipulation. It demonstrates how completely a powerful state can erase inconvenient truths, how thoroughly it can rewrite its own story. For nearly 2,000 years, the strategy worked. The Ninth became a romantic mystery rather than a political scandal. Generations of historians chased theories of glorious last stands and heroic defeats, never suspecting that the real story was one of calculated abandonment and bureaucratic cover-up. But perhaps most disturbing is what this reveals about the nature of historical truth itself. How many other mysteries are actually cover-ups? How many other inconvenient episodes have been scrubbed from the record by those with the power to control the narrative? The Ninth Legion's story forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality. The history we think we know is often the history someone wanted us to know. The real story, the complete story, may be buried not just in the ground but beneath layers of deliberate deception. Even today, the Ninth Legion's fate raises profound questions. If Rome could so completely erase one of its most famous military units, what else has been hidden? How many other legions, other campaigns, other scandals have been successfully buried? The mystery also highlights the tension between imperial ambition and human nature. Rome's greatest strength was its ability to impose uniform culture across vast distances. But that same strength became a weakness when local adaptation was seen as disloyalty. The ninth may have been destroyed not for failing Rome, but for understanding their enemies too well. In our modern age of information warfare and narrative control, the Ninth Legion's story feels disturbingly relevant. It reminds us that those who control the records control the past, and those who control the past shape the future. The ghosts of the Ninth Legion whisper a warning across the centuries. Question what you're told, especially when the telling seems too neat, too convenient, too free of uncomfortable complications. Because sometimes the greatest stories are the ones power never wanted you to hear. What do you think happened to Rome's lost Ninth Legion? Was this a military disaster or a political execution? Let me know your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. Because the past is never as simple as it seems, and the truth is always worth finding.